What is good, everybody? Gamer Critic back with another Why I'm Buying, and today we are talking about a new game from Game Freak of all people that isn't a Pokemon game, and this game is Beast of Reincarnation. So Beast of Reincarnation is a brand new action RPG being developed by Game Freak. It releases on August 4th, 2026 for the PS5, the Xbox Series X and S, and PC. It is also coming to Game Pass day one, which is worth noting. Now, I want to start out by saying this. When I first saw this game, I think like a year ago, I really didn't think much of it, but the more you look into it and the more you take time to understand what the devs are really trying to do with this game, the more I actually really started to get into it, to the point where if everything lands, this could really end up being one of the big surprises of this year. Of course, you always gotta wait and see because you never know, but the stuff that we're seeing in this game, I just really think it has a lot of potential. And what's even more shocking is, again, it's from Game Freak of all companies. Game Freak. Do I need to remind you guys what their last Pokemon games have looked like? Not good. Which is why I am genuinely impressed with how amazing Beast of Reincarnation looks. But I'll get into all that later, because the first thing I want to start with is the actual story and the setting, because it's a story that's really touching on themes that I just really enjoy and vibe with. Just listen to this. So the story takes place in a post-apocalyptic Japan in the year 4026, nearly 2,000 years into the future. In this future, civilization has basically collapsed, there are very few humans left, and Japan has been consumed by this mysterious corruption known as the Blight, which will transform anything it touches, animals, and nature, into monstrous creatures called Malefacts. And in this story, we play as Emma, a young woman who, instead of actually being turned into a monster, was actually born with the Blight inside her, giving her many different abilities, but at the cost of her humanity. She begins her journey with no memories and no emotions. Now, Emma and her loyal companion Ku have to travel the corrupted Japanese landscape to confront powerful bosses and ultimately confront the legendary Beast of Reincarnation, which is believed to be the source of the world's corruption, and end this apocalypse once and for all, but also learning to come to grips with her humanity along the way. Just the entire lore of how this world came to be already starts this game out on a legitimately big mystery that I kind of want to find out. But it's also just looking at this world, it really gives me complete Nier Automata and Horizon vibes. Just nature completely taking over civilization. But even then, there's a really interesting amount of lore in this game. We already talked about the Malefacts, but there is also the Golems. These are enemies that came to be because a faction of humanity transferred their souls into mechanical bodies to survive the apocalypse. Everything I'm trying to say here, I just really love these type of post-apocalyptic settings. It really allows people to get creative and imaginative, and I really think that Beast of Reincarnation is not only a gorgeous looking example of it, but I think it's an example that is clearly taking full advantage of it. But despite all this destruction and bleakness that is clearly throughout this entire world, this is still a story that is ultimately about warmth and trust. I love stories like this, where an outcast or a monster or a robot slowly discover what it truly means to be human. And that's exactly what is happening with Emma. She got these amazing powers from the Blight, but in exchange, she has no memories, no emotions, and she's a social outcast, a recluse who only has one goal. So while the main overall goal of this game is to find the Beast of Reincarnation, it is also a very personal story for Emma. The developers themselves even confirm that she is desperate to understand what emotions truly are, and eventually that leads to the inevitable encounter with Ku, and together they're gonna go on their beautiful journey. It is clearly going to be a story that pulls at the heartstrings. When they first started making the game, the director didn't even say that it started with gameplay or even the world. It began with a specific feeling that they wanted to invoke. At its emotional core, it's a story of warmth and trust and loneliness, and the developers really wanted to convey that in all the aspects. When it comes to the story, the world, the presentation, devotion in both visuals and music, this is clearly a game that is aiming to be a very quiet, very heavy, but very hopeful emotional experience. But I spent all that time talking about the presentation and story. We also need to talk about the gameplay. The slogan for this game was a one-woman, one-dog action RPG. Now, when I first saw that, I thought that was just a bunch of word salad. But after seeing the gameplay in motion, I kind of understand what they're going for here. While you control Emma the whole time, doing fast katana combat, which involves dodging, perfect parries, deflection, Ku, on the other hand, is going to be assisting by unleashing bloom arts, which are special abilities that you have to access through a tactical menu while continuing to play as Emma. So it really leads to this really interesting balance for the two of them, because in order to succeed, you really do need to rely on both. You need Emma's sword skills, and you need the deflections and parries to build up the FP, which will lead you to be able to use all of the bloom arts that will allow for heavy damage, crowd control, defensive support. Think of like the parrying from Sekiro with the command-based RPGs of stuff like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. And of course, this is an RPG, so there's going to be different gears and abilities. You'll get skill trees to improve your combat. You'll get charms for Ku to improve their combat. The game even supports different play styles. Now, the world itself is not fully open world. I want to start with that. But the director of Beast of Reincarnation has confirmed that it's not fully open world, but it's more straight with wide paths. You're going to be exploring multiple different areas, blighted forest, industrial areas, and in all of these places, the game encourages exploration, not just from the world itself and its open zone structure, but from the traversal abilities that are going to be offered to Emma. Because she's a Blightborn, she has plant-based abilities outside of combat. She is able to cross gaps and reach elevated areas by using vines grown from her own hair. I will admit, it's kind of weird, but it's also just really cool. I mean, you can cross gaps using the vines that you make from your own hair. That's sick. So not fully open world, but more like multiple smaller open zones to explore anytime that you can. And because of that, the size allows for experimentation in different playstyles. From, of course, the aggressive melee combat, you can do stealth, and the playstyle that you choose to partake in will be dependent on your equipment, skills, and loadouts. The point is, between the traversal, the exploration, the very parry-heavy and tactical focused combat, with this gorgeous presentation, I'm talking music and visuals, legitimately interesting setting and mystery, and a story that does actually look like it's trying to get emotional. It is honestly a game that ticks all the boxes for me. The post-apocalyptic setting, the deep emotional story about finding humanity, and a really interesting combat system that is reliant on real-time action and turn-based combat. All of it sounds like it was made with love and passion, and it just looks even better the more I see it. And now I gotta say it at the end every single time, we need to wait and see. There is legitimately a chance where the story just ends up not hitting. There's a chance where the combat is not great. I'm not counting on the combat one, but it's possible. But right now, given everything that I have seen, I am legitimately impressed with Beast of Reincarnation. And I can't believe I'm saying that after not being that interested in this game mere months ago. But here we are, and the more I see of it, the more I truly can't wait to check this game out for myself, because honestly, I have really high hopes, and hopefully Game Freak doesn't let me down, and those hopes are delivered on August 4th, 2026. And that is why I'm buying Beast of Reincarnation. Thank you guys so much for watching. My next review is going to be a review on Crimson Desert. Sorry it took so long. This is a big-ass game. I'm sure you understand. Stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. It helps a ton. If you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram. That's @TheGamerCritic. Be good people, and I will talk to all of you very soon. All right, peace.